Think I'll play a little dinner music for the rabbits in the backyard. Why's it got to be so hard? Let's do it.
Okay.
Mosquito.
Welcome to another episode of Songwriter to Songwriter, sponsored by the Americana Community Music Association. Today we're honored to have Roy Schneider. I'm a big fan of Roy's. I've got his t-shirts, got his art on my albums, and we're just going to get to know Roy here for the next little while. Let me hear a few songs. So, hey Roy.
Hi, Bill.
So how did music come into your life?
How did it come into my life? Well, I guess, it always starts with listening, right? And noticing. And but as far as it coming in and becoming something that I was going to do, my favorite story to tell is it's not even much of a story, but it's just a very fond memory. Was when a few friends of mine and I, my friend John and I dug out his dad's old drum kit out of the garage. And I don't even remember whose idea it was. It had to have been his, because I wouldn't have just dug in. I think we were out there messing around. I was like, ooh, you got drums. And he said, hey, let's bring them in. It just was one of those things. Let's set them up next to, Mom has an organ, and that's a musical thing. So let's set them up there. And we didn't really know how to set up drums. I think at first I could put them backwards, but, we kind of... So, yeah, he said he knew a song. I don't know. Somehow, by the end of that afternoon, we had played a version of Satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction.
With an organ and a set of drums. How old were you?
12. 1982. And in that moment, I knew, though. I did know. I mean, like, at the end of that, I think the second day, we invited Brett Parker over to play guitar, who he plays lead guitar in a band called Scarab. They're a Journey cover band, and they tour all over the place. They're like a big Journey cover band.
I'm just trying to picture a couple of 12-year-olds working on a song with an organ and a set of drums.
Yeah, and eventually a guitar.
But I know you started out as a drummer, like I did.
Yeah, but then I was the only one who sang. I would sing, so I'm behind the drums yelling. We didn't have any mic stands, so at one point I think we hung a mic from a pipe in the basement, and I was like singing into that.
I got to tell you, because I think playing the drums and singing is much more difficult than playing the guitar and singing. There's so many different, because you got so many different rhythms going on anyway with 2 feet and 2 hands. That then to come up with the meter that you're singing is I found it was beyond my ability to do well.
Yeah, well, that's why it didn't take too long to moving ahead kind of quickly. I mean, I was into the drums. I was mesmerized by guitar. My dad was a guitar player, and but my parents split up when I was a kid, so I didn't really live with my dad. I wasn't...
Right.
It seems like a lot of times direct children of musicians don't do that thing because, I don't know, I wonder if
it's not cool to do what your parents do, maybe?
Something, I guess, but... Because I wonder, like, if I had lived in the same house with him, if I would have ever... I probably would have just stuck with the drums or something else to play around what he was doing. But, eventually, especially after... moving way ahead, I mean, we played in some bands and stuff, and I was just messing around with guitar when I went through a whole lot of crazy stuff. I got in some trouble, and I ended up...
personal life stuff.
Yeah, personal life stuff, but I ended up in a situation where I could not touch a guitar, I couldn't play any music for a whole year, and, I won't delve into that. That was a year of hell, but once I came out of there, I had to stay. I had to stay hidden for a while. I was kind of on the lam until I was 18, and so I was a runaway kid trying to lay low. So all I really had to do, I had to just occupy myself and not really be out there mingling much. So I just spent a lot of time drawing, painting, playing guitar. That's all I did.
But that was a pretty formative event in your life, right? I mean, you've written a song about that, I know, and recently you've kind of finally come to the point where you can, I guess, express what you went through.
Yeah. Oh, with that whole thing, yeah. I mean, the long and short, if anybody doesn't know, if you've heard me before or seen us live, you've probably heard of it by now. But for 30 years, I didn't talk about it. It was called Straight, and it was under the guise of being a drug rehab. But it was really a brainwash thing. They really tried to get in your head and change your whole way of thinking. And
Well,
it was ridiculous. So part of that was like no identity. They cut everybody's hair, no facial hair, like nothing.
Almost
that
like a
would make
military
you
boot camp
unique.
kind of
no
thing?
Jewelry, no hairspray for the girls or makeup, no logos. I definitely couldn't wear anything with a guitar on it. Nothing with So it just so I couldn't play or write or sing, for a whole year. So once I got out of there, that was a huge motivator. All I wanted to do was express myself.
Right,
and like I said, I was on my own so much of the time. It's almost all I did for a solid year anyway. It was just
and I think that
learn every song that I was listening to all day long.
that I think a lot of people would probably say that at some point in their life, if they're musicians, that music is a great therapy.
Oh yeah.
And, for the audience too, but really for the performer. I think it's a tool. Like I personally try to memorize the lyrics and everything in the songs, and not use a pad or something, because I feel that's important for your brain. Even though I screw up more, I think it's good for your brain to just be able to remember that stuff as you get older, and maybe that gets harder.
In the beginning of all this music stuff, like real pursuit, I mean, I was playing in bars, just because, in the beginnings of my adult life, I was more into the visual side of my creative brain. I was doing graphic design and layout and stuff like that, and then I was working for a toy company, a place in Chicago, Simon Marketing. They did toys for Happy Meals, and I was on a product development team, so it was all the visual stuff, and through all of that I was sending out comic strips out to the syndicates, trying to get a comic strip syndicated, because then I thought, because I had a young girl, a baby, a couple of kids by then, and I thought, well then if I could get a strip syndicated, I could stay home and do that, and then musically I could just build my studio and do whatever I wanted with music without having to. I didn't necessarily want to go out and play on stage. I did, but
I know that road life can be.
I was already
Especially
older
with
than
the family.
19. I figured I had kids. I was like, no one's gonna want to hear me.
So how old were you when you had your first kid?
19.
Wow.
18.
Wow, that's amazing.
I had them pretty early, and then both of my kids had kids pretty early. So I became a grandfather at 39. I mean, just weeks before I was going to turn 40, my first grandchild was born, and I thought, no, you can't call me grandpa. They can't call me grandpa. Now I wouldn't have any problem with it. It's been a few years. But they all call me Pops, because that's what my son-in-law was calling me already. He just decided to do that. The song I want to play for you, though, is about because when Bill and I talked, he said, pick 3 songs that span your musical career, or however you put it. And I thought, so this was, to connect everything I've just been saying, is I did eventually get a comic strip syndicated called The Humble Stumble, and that wasn't until right after I got divorced from my first wife, and I had my one daughter with me, so I was a single dad for about 6 years. And so that was what after submitting comic strips for almost 13 years, that was the one that they picked up. It was the one that came straight out of real life. And so,
Well, like music.
yeah,
That's what you write about what you know, right?
yeah. And so once I got the strip going, I had big hopes and big fantasies about it, and unfortunately it didn't take off. It was not the next Dilbert, as far as sales go. It was nothing like Dilbert. But I was with United Media, and big syndicate, New York. I thought, all right, we're going to do this, and just didn't go.
What I've got to interject here, Roy, is that I think that sometimes there is, especially in America, that you're not successful unless you're the home run hitter. You're not a successful team until you've won the championship. You're not successful unless you have the top grossing comic or the platinum albums. But the reality is, everyone has a level of success, and just doing what you did, you were syndicated. How many people can say that?
Well, I'm glad I did, because I don't think I would have ever. I mean, at a certain point, I'd been at it so many years, saying the whole time that I'm not going to quit until this happens. I couldn't. There's no way I could have quit. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I at least got syndicated, got to go through that experience that I could only read about and dream about when I read about Bill Watterson and all my favorite cartoonists. I got to experience that Daily Deadline panic and all those things, how to color a Sunday comic for American Color, that's who would process all the Sunday pages, and I got to learn all that stuff and be in the business, be part of the National Cartoonist Society for about 8 years. And,
so that is quite an
meet all
accomplishment.
my heroes. So during all that, then I started bringing my music into the idea, and like I made little by little. Joe was a guitar player because he was basically me, and I had another character in there called Lincoln, and he was the goofier, wackier, naughtier side of me, I think. And he played banjo, and Joe played guitar, and Molly played violin at school. And eventually, I was going to have her get a little older, and maybe have them do a bluegrass thing. That was always a side vein. So I always hoped that if the strip took off and there would be some sort of animated anything, a TV series, a movie, a special, that I would do the soundtrack. So I got ahead of myself, and I wrote some songs. And so this one's called There Goes Mr. Humble, and it's kind of the theme for the whole strip.
Now, was this your first CD?
Yes, and I recorded my first CD. So I recorded this in 2006. So it was like when I did a first official CD.
All right.
So I thought this would be a good time period. One day, wake up, sun is shining and you're ready for another day. Next day, shake up, suddenly finding that certain things are going astray. Now it's only you and the kid. Got to keep on smiling, trying to move ahead. There goes Mr. Humble, picking up the fumble, humbly stumbling along. Washing, shopping, sweeping and mopping, and don't forget to shake out the rug. Don't forget to get the dog to the vet and make sure he ain't got bugs. Got to get your work done on time. Got to make the PTA tonight. Try not to whine. There goes Mr. Humble, picking up the fumble, humbly stumbling along. See if I still remember the harmonica part. Now it's only you and the kid. Got to keep on smiling, trying to move ahead. There goes Mr. Humble, picking up the fumble, humbly stumbling. There goes Mr. Humble, he's picking up the fumble, humbly stumbling, humbly stumbling along.
Nicely done, Roy.
There you go. Thank you.
Just for the record, you did ask for permission to bring a banjo into my house. I don't know if I ever granted it, but he did ask.
Yeah. Or I think I might have just said warning. It sent a picture.
So your whole first album was kind of loosely related to the comic strip in some way, right?
Yeah, and I was also starting to go to Sewanee Spring Fest a lot and hang out musically with a lot of bluegrass people at that
okay.
time. So I did a record called The Humble Sessions. That was the beginning, the first song. They're all songs about different characters and situations in the strip.
And the bluegrass, community is a place where banjos are generally accepted.
Yeah. And since Lincoln was a banjo player in the strip, because he was also partially based on my old friend Ken, who always wanted to play the banjo when we were growing up, but he just didn't quite work, so he ended up giving me his banjo. And that's what got me started on it. So I blame Ken. It's your fault, Ken.
So now you were, so you're doing you're raising your daughter, you're doing the comic strip, and you're playing in local bars at that time?
Yep.
And then eventually you went off of syndication?
It was so much work. I mean, you end up, every waking thought, every minute, every anything that makes you chuckle even a little bit, you got to write it down. Like, how can I use that?
Looking for ideas.
Because every day you got to have another thing.
It's not like a once a week thing.
Yeah. And if you write a song, you can play that song hundreds, thousands of times.
Yes,
if you write a strip, you can't just keep going, hey, read this joke.
Yeah,
read it again.
Right. Yeah.
So I had the Trib. I had Chicago Tribune, and I was living in Chicago while I was pursuing syndication, and that was like my biggest thing. Someday I'm going to be in this paper.
Right.
And I was in this paper, and it was also the biggest and the best paying. And I knew that if I didn't have them, it would not be worth it financially for me to dedicate every minute of every day. Yeah. Eventually, though, when I was going to put all my focus on music, it was like right about the time I dropped the Strip, and I thanked United Media, and decided, well, I'm going to just focus on the gigs. Well, Kim, my wife Kim, who is also going to interview with you, she was not playing with me at all then. We played a little bit at home.
But you were married. You were married then?
We didn't get married for a while. We were together for about 7 years before we got married.
Oh, right, okay.
We'd been on the road a few years by the time we got married. But getting ahead of myself, though, when I dropped the Strip, right about that same time, the gigs weren't going that well either, only because it was summer here in Florida, and then the tourism drops off. And so they had gone from 5 nights a week down to about 2, and the occasional third if I got a call, so it wasn't too much commitment. And she said, well, how about this? Let's take a working vacation. I'm going to find some venues out of town. I'm going to go online and find some places, because you got all these songs you wrote, because she used to always ask me, why don't you play your songs when I play in the bars? And still to this day, like lately I play a few bars around here, I pretty much stick to cover songs, because it's not a concert.
Yeah.
People are there to eat, and half the time they're there to watch football, and you're playing. Now, I'm not against doing that because it puts groceries in my fridge, and I do like to play and sing, and I play all covers that I like. A lot of times people will ask me, and it's old stuff, man, people will ask me, hey, can you learn that song, blah, 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 and chances are no. I'm a busy guy, I know hundreds of old songs, and those are the ones I play when I go to the bar. I don't like to play originals to people who don't care.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that. Although you have a lot more creative investment in your originals, and that kind of identify you more than the covers you play.
Yeah, sometimes the other day I had some fun. I played one of my originals, and I got to the end, and I felt like I nailed it, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. But again, I understand. People are coming out to eat, and they don't even know half the time.
And
except the regulars at the bar, you're just an extra thing.
They want to hear something familiar.
In that situation.
Yeah.
It's not like they bought a ticket to go see the Roy Schneider show.
Right.
So I'm just that guy in the corner playing, when I do that kind of gig. But what I did last week, I had some fun, because I played one of my songs, and it zero response. So then I played something that is just so overdone. Mm-hmm. It was like Brown Eyed Girl or something like that. Right. And then just to see, and it go woo, and then I played one of my songs, nothing, and then I played The Joker by Steve Miller. I tried to pick what's the most cliche song that everybody wants to hear in the bar. Well, and nothing against either one of those songs. They're both good songs, but they get played by everybody.
Kim, when traveling, those venues are mostly like the Roy and Kim concert, and so you're playing originals?
Yeah, well, that's what happened. We and it was scary because it was a huge, money drop. Just because at least the places that I played, I knew I was getting a guaranteed amount of money at the end of the night. Generally, when you play in a bar, there's a guarantee, and you put out a tip jar, maybe you get something extra.
Right.
But when you book house concerts and folk clubs, you got to get butts in seats. That's what you got to get people, because it's based on people. Generally, in those situations, they give at the door. There's usually a suggested donation, which is suggested pretty, we're not going to trip you or push you out the door, but come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're not obligated, but there's a guilt factor there.
Yeah. And sometimes, and so, but in the beginning, man, it was, because nobody knows who you are yet. We'd gone to a couple of Folk Alliance things, and so we met a few house concert hosts and a couple of folk club people that said, hey, come to my venue, and so we set a few things up, and they always would say, and I knew it was coming just by the look in their eyes, there's no guarantee there's going to be money. And so we would do everything we could to, and Facebook was like a new thing. When we first started traveling, it'd only been around a year or two, strongly, as far as on people's lips in conversation. So we decided, we better get on this social media thing, and so at least we could say, hey, we're going to be in whatever place, and we started taking pictures, and so basically we went around to a bunch of places where nobody knew us, and we didn't get that many people, and I had to, I learned an early lesson. I had a little ego hissy fit, And we decided, we played, we didn't know this. Kim booked us, one of our very first shows was it was a coffee house in St. Pete. And I didn't realize it was a very much, I mean, it's not required to be gay to go there, but it is a very popular with the gay community coffee house. And we got there, and I kind of had learned this, and I was like, "Oh, this will be pretty cool, and different," you know.
Yeah.
And I was all excited about doing this show, and like nobody came, literally nobody. And so it was like the first time I was going to play to nobody, but it wasn't a bar. There was like literally, it was empty. It was just the barista guy, and the kicker for that one specifically was, didn't know it was the day of the Pride Parade.
Oh.
Everybody was there.
Right.
So the streets are like you could hear crickets. But from then on, I mean, and it was always fluctuating. House concerts, it always depends. If someone has done a lot of house concerts and you're brand new, but that host has been doing them a long time, and their people trust their taste, let's go see who this Roy guy is. I got $15 or whatever to put it in the hat.
And then you start getting a following.
And then they talk about it on Facebook, which was a new thing. Yeah, so it's kind of, it grew. And so as we traveled around and got new people, then we could say we're coming to town, but we're not playing at the house concert this time. They didn't have room, but we're playing at the, the cafe down the road 2 nights after the house concert they're having. So those people might come on over to the coffee shop or whatever, and it just grew over the years. Yeah. So we were touring for 11 years, and I don't want to say it like it's past tense, but COVID stopped us pretty much dead in our tracks like everybody else.
Yeah.
And so we're just starting to get out there again now. We've gotten a little more plugged in locally. Yeah, and when you plan the trips, you look at this map and you try to plan it like we'll go here and here and here and here and maybe over here and make your way back. But what you end up, that's the goal, right? But you end up going from here to here, to back to here, to here, to over here, to up here, to over here, here.
Yeah, because if you go to a town when the festival's not going on, then it's kind of like playing at a gay bar during Pride Parade.
Exactly. Yep.
So you got another song for us there, Roy?
Sure. Let's just move ahead. So time went on. We did some traveling. A lot of my songs started coming from the traveling, and
yeah, it's a lot of road songs from traveling musicians. It's kind of hard to avoid, isn't it?
It's people say, oh, during COVID you must have done a lot of writing. You had all that time on your hands. I'm like, no, I did almost none. I did some, but mostly kind of downer songs. Things with a little political bent or something that I don't like to be. I don't like to be too political in my not blatantly in the music, but we weren't traveling. There weren't new experiences to stimulate the juices. So I was trying to dig into the past.
You've sung songs about rabbits in the yard, so there's sometimes the inspiration comes to you.
Hey, I'll do that one because that was on Walls That Talk, and that one had a lot of bluegrassy stuff going on. And actually, it was a little. When I listen to it now, I'm kind of like, wow, there's fiddles and mandolins and everything's going crazy. It's a bit busy, but it's fun. This song is called One for the Rabbits, and it came specifically from, we were visiting Nana. We were on the road, and Nana, who now lives here in Florida, my grandmother, she's 96, but she was, we would always make sure to go to her place in Sylvania, Ohio. And this particular time it was weird. She was not there. We called her. We could count her. She was in her 80s. We could count on her pretty much being home. Yeah. She wasn't being crazy adventurous anymore. But this one time we called and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna miss you. We're going on a road trip. So I'll leave the key under the mat." And so here I was at Nana's house without Nana, and I went right back to after the whole thing we talked about earlier, when I was institutionalized and then ran away. I had a couple years of just crazy, scary on the street stuff, and then I ended up landing at Nana's house.
So she was your refuge.
And so I went right back to then, and then I wrote this song. She had these Concord grapevines growing in the back, and at night, around sunset, every night the rabbits come out and they munch on the grass all around the grapevines and jump and play and hop over each other. It's very cute. So I was watching them. I'll play a little dinner music for the rabbits in the backyard. But why's it gotta be so hard? Damn mosquitoes. I really did that, and I thought I'm gonna keep that.
But you know I'm gonna stay out anyway. Watch the sun as it goes down. Feel it wash away my frown, spreading those colors around. Not letting me down. No, it never lets me down. Well, just watching the fireflies glowing in the dark. No one ever understood how. I don't need to know right now. I just wanna be here now. Just be right here now with Bill. Yeah. Soul House has a soul of its own. Many times it's taken me far from home. Welcome me back with open arms. Never letting me wander too close to harm. Got the money woes and future woes too. Worry about all the things I guess I'm supposed to. But I know everything is already alright. Every time I make it through one more night. I only hold some part of that spirit will stay. Even when the keeper is far, far, far away. Oh, but I guess I know it's really up to me to keep reliving memory of people and places that came before, and leave that book just inside the door. Oh, when I go. Yeah. Said I got money woes and future woes too. Just worry about all those things I guess we're all supposed to. But I know everything is already alright. Every time I make it one more night. Well, I think I'll play a little morning music for the rabbits in the backyard.
Very nice song. You know,
Got along with it.
I think one of the really brilliant parts about that song is that it seems like a song about nothing, just playing for the rabbits in the backyard. But really, there's a lot more depth to it. It's really about contentment, you know, and just being kind of mindful and thoughtful about what's going on in your life. That's what I get out of it, anyway.
Yeah. And I think there's a little element of paying it forward somehow on some, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about music, right? I mean, it seems like if you get inspired by real personal things, that's good, but you don't want to write it too very, very specifically personal.
Too literally. Yeah.
Or I mean, if you're able to write about it without being too specific about too much, then I feel like more people, because everybody has experiences and they're going to hear what
that's like sometimes
they
in a
went
song,
through
it sounds like it's complete gibberish or whatever, or it's aimless, but then some people read a meaning into it. It's kind of like abstract paintings, right? People will read into it, maybe get more out of it than if it's just a literal kind of thing.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with literal. I mean, there's a lot of those songs too, but they're pretty specific. So if you know what's going on there,
But a lot of those too, a lot of them come off as literal, like like a John Prine thing. I mean, but they're fictitious, But he's making a point by giving you an example like that. So how did you write that song? You were sitting in the backyard, swatting mosquitoes.
I was walking around in Nana's backyard without Nana there. So all of a sudden, I went from being 38 to 17 or something. Just walking around, and just because I walked back there and there was the same little red barn, the same grapevines in the same place, overgrown. She never harvested the grapes, so every year the grapes would grow and die.
Right.
So that was kind of sad, but she didn't. They were there and they were pretty, but she didn't make wine or anything, so she didn't know what to do with them.
Fed the birds and the rabbits, right?
They were Concord, so that's not even really a wine grape, is it? That's more of like a jelly grape, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And so there were rabbits running around the backyard, or that was.
Yeah, and it was so I thought, oh, these must be the great grandchildren of the rabbits that were hopping back here when I was.
Yeah.
Because that's how that was. Like I said, after a year of being in that hell hole and not being able to play, my main thing was I would get my head in a place where I liked it and grab my guitar and grab my dog and just walk back through the yard and there was some woods back there, some trails. And I would just walk around and play, and occasionally start writing my first songs. But so here I was, sort of being nostalgic about all that, and I started writing that song in the house. But eventually, the mosquitoes, I will say, they did. I said I'm going to stay out anyway, blah blah blah. I did for about another 5 minutes, and then eventually I had to go in.
Now, did you start with the guitar, or did you start with the melody on that song?
Oh, on that one specifically, that little thing, and I know almost every guitar player has this or has had this. Where look at me, I got multiple picks going. I'm rich in picks.
There you go.
But this thing, like I would wake up in the morning and get my coffee and pick up my guitar and I would just that. And I kept thinking, la, 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 la. I just never knew it was just that thing, and I must have had it for 3 years.
Right.
There were a few other things like that too, but that was always one of my little noodles,
This amazes me, because I do the same thing. I'll fart around my guitar. I'll come up with something that sounds pretty clever, right? I'm just waiting for a place to insert it, or you come up with a melody. But sometimes marrying those two is tricky, because you gotta have the right mood for what you want to say, and
So I looked up, and there were the rabbits, and they were munching, and it was about sunset, early sunset or going on sunset, good dinner time. So there it's happening. I'll play a little dinner music for the rabbits in the backyard. I mean, the words that just put right on there.
Right, yeah.
Why's it got to be so hard? Because as I wrote that, there was a mosquito sucking. I think he was actually on my neck. Clown/mime friend was telling me, higher is better, because I used to do it down here on my leg. And he's like, no, you got to have it up higher when you're on stage. But he's like, yeah, but don't smack yourself in the face. Like, maybe. So I started doing it like on my forearm.
Yeah.
But that was really weird, but I went right back onto it. Maybe I should, and so I kept it.
Yeah. Well, see, if you were doing that in Florida this time of year at sunset, it sounded like a whole drum session with the swatting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So Reckless Saints is the name of the band with you and Kim.
Yeah.
Where'd that name come from?
Well, it's funny. It's because we were going to play this kind of hippie granola festival. It was like Americana and rock mostly, and so we got my friend Tom Callahan, who not to get ahead of myself, but later on he did join us and toured with us on and off for about a year. But we're back to being a duo now. But which is not to say we might not play together again. But for this thing, he hooked us up with this gig in Cincinnati area, and so we had him play bass, and he has a good friend Dave who played drums. So we were going to be a band for the first time. So I didn't want to be. We were like Roy Schneider and Kim Mayfield, or Roy with Kim, or Kim and Roy, or we were always booked as different things because it was just Roy Schneider. But once Kim started playing with me, it just started getting. We were never. It wasn't consistent. And so once we did this festival and we were going to be a band, we said, well, we got to look at some of the band names that were going to be at this thing.
Oh,
and they all
right.
had these funky, cool names. I wish I could think of some. But the Rumpke Mountain Boys was one of them. And they were one of the headliners. They're a big deal up there. And I guess Rumpke it's actually a landfill.
Oh.
Since I didn't play Angels Along the Road, or did I? Did I play Angels Along the Road?
Today?
No. We were talking about it because we were talking about that period in time. But I didn't.
Right, because that was another one of your...
So I played There Goes Mr. Humble. So let me finish then my third song with... I'll do this. This is a more recent one. Also about... it's just about the time at Straight. And just kind of... I was trying to... I've written several songs since Angels Along the Road about this experience, but just... some more specific than others. This was called Bird in a Hurricane. This was one line in there I was pretty proud of, trying to liken what it was like. Because you're living your life, doing your thing. You got your friends, you got your hometown. You're 15 years old. There's a way of living every day. You get up and and you're blooming, and then suddenly all of that is gone. You have no contact with the outside world, no music, no TV, nothing, no. So
interesting analogy. Bird in a hurricane. That's
So-
a great analogy for a lot of things. Because being here and seeing the storms come through, these little birds weigh 4 ounces, and the wind
I
comes
always
by
think
at
about
80
them.
miles an hour. How are they still around? Your chairs blow over.
Yeah, like how are there still birds?
Yeah, yeah.
When I woke up, I might as well have been in chains, ripped out of my life like a bird in a hurricane. One day of life, got your feathers up and sing, struggling for a girl. Suddenly every light emanating from you is hidden from the world. Pull it all inside. But on day one, he got in my face and he laid down the law. It was a different kind of crazy with anger deeper in his eyes than I ever saw. But I gotta be fair, he'd already been there a year or more. Just breathing it in and breathing it out and believing it to the core. Pull it all inside. Crying inside a lie to survive. 'Cause it began to sink in. I may never see another tree. Never again breathe in the sweet scent of liberty. If I didn't shape up, lay down and appear to surrender my mind, these were the only songs I might ever hear again. Holy Jesus, please be kind. I want to hear that mercy, yeah. Take me over hill, over dale, and shoot me. They took away my sunshine, took the guitar from my hand, but I guess you could not take the music from my soul. I gotta hand it to you, man, you really gave it all you had. Now this note's for you, and I hope you grow. May the music help you to grow.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. But yeah, that's kind of almost kind of a poppy sounding thing, isn't it? I think I've been listening to some Ryan Adams when I came up with that one.
Yeah, it's got a different sound. It's very nice. I mean the all that movement that's going on in there really makes the whole chords very interesting, and you can drive the rhythm through. You can see the drummer in you. Like Bill that's what he says. Guitar is a percussion instrument.
Yeah, I heard him say that on sitting right here.
Yeah, yeah, and it's which is I guess a good thing if you come from a drumming background. So who are your biggest influences?
Wow, there's so many. As a writer, I mean, because as a guitar player, I don't know. When I started learning to play, and thinking about writing, it was Bob Dylan, Grateful Dead, Cat Stevens, Jim Croce, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Neil Young. Big time Neil Young. I didn't like Neil Young at all until I went and saw him. Someone practically dragged me to a concert, and it just changed my whole world.
Really?
Neil Young with Crazy Horse in 1987. It was, oh my God. It was general admission then too, and we sat right up front, and for him to come out with his acoustic guitar and his harmonica, and he just had that intense look on his face. I was like, wow, because I play guitar, but wow. You can really, like, I didn't realize how badass you could be with just an acoustic guitar and a harmonica.
Yeah, right.
He's like a rock star with those two things, and I thought, I want to do that. And then the world opened up and the band came out and just freaking blew my mind. So that was the perfect concert for someone who, I love folk. I love Peter, Paul and Mary. I love old Bob Dylan. That's just an acoustic guitar. I love the harmonies with Joan Baez and all that stuff. But I also love AC/DC. I mean, if I'm in that mood, So to go to a show where someone could do that, and that's what got me thinking in those terms. Like, maybe I could do this music thing. I could play my acoustic and also maybe have a rock and roll band someday. So that's how we ended up way up here now. Reckless Saints. We're an acoustic duo, but I now play electric guitar while Kim plays acoustic sometimes. So this is our teeny tiny.
The more you know about something, the more interesting it becomes, right? So when you write songs and you play songs and you're listening to someone, even if it's not your style and it's not something you're going to do, you listen to it differently. You're dissecting it more. Listening to what's going on in the song instead of just saying you like it or you don't like it.
Yeah. Oh, I hear music way differently now but that's coming from recording and mixing. I hear music totally differently than I ever used to.
Yeah.
I'm listening to what's going on where this way rather than just not paying attention to.
Well, you're listening to it with knowing that you can change it. That's you can't do that with something that's comes on the radio. It's not yours.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, listen. That pretty much ends this interview. Songwriter to Songwriter with Roy Schneider, and if you have to cut that off. This is presented by the Americana Community Music Association, and it's going to be on their website. I'm not quite sure when, but Roy is you're one of the founding members of the ACMA, right?
Yeah. It was. It's funny because sometimes when they announce things there, they would before shows or if when we were going to do anything, they would give me some sort of credit for it. Like I can't accept any credit. I didn't do any of the work to make the place. But what happened was there were a few people who were supporting what Kim and I were doing, traveling around. And when we got to talking, saying there's a lot of people doing what we do. We go to Folk Alliance and see hundreds of people that are playing these guerrilla showcases, they call them. The late night in the hotel rooms, all through the hotel. There's people doing 3 and 5 song showcases. And they all got talking. Said, we need a venue in this town so that all these people that do what they do, we support them, and we want to see other people who do this too. We want to hear some new music that we don't necessarily know yet. We want to.
That's interesting because I lived in Salt Lake City for a long time, and there were groups, usually the church, who brought out like John Gorka and Patty Larkin, and some of those types that come through. And if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't have been a venue.
Yeah, well, my favorite venue as a kid, I saw Arlo Guthrie and Donovan. These are some more like, name brand acts at a place in Ann Arbor called the Ark, and then I started to learn that the Ark had been around a long time and had hosted a lot of very well-known people, but also a whole bunch of people who were currently going around and singing folk songs. So I started going there regularly, and that was also a life changer. That was after the Neil Young concert and getting my mind blown by the rock and roll. I found this cool little upstairs cabin hole in the wall that had all these great musicians I'd never heard of coming through all the time. Like David Wilcox was one of them.
Oh yeah.
People like that, and John Gorka and of that ilk.
Yeah,
It was one of those venues.
I think it also kind of makes it, from a performer, makes it more accessible, because if you dream you're going to go and play Red Rocks, and pack the house out, but
Yeah.
you see someone on stage doing, you go, well, I can do that. That's
Yeah.
that's not as big of a leap of faith as saying I'm going to pack Red Rocks.
Right. Yeah.
The ACMA, brings a lot of good acts, and they also have the singer-songwriter circle on Sundays. So if you see Roy and you go, wow, I want to be like Roy, that's a good place to start. So thanks to Roy for coming out for the Songwriter to Songwriter.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
But I'm getting soft.